Let's go ahead and pray together and we'll get started. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Thank you for raising up these men and giving them the desire to serve their community as your minister for good. I ask that you grant them clarity of thought and allow them to communicate their ideas and passions regarding the position they seek. I also ask that you would let us listen well, allowing us to hear their hearts and their thoughts. Please bless our time tonight. May our thoughts and actions be honoring to you and encouraging to one another. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, well, thanks everyone for coming out tonight, and special thanks for these fine gentlemen for giving up their Tuesday night. We have Jonathan Aydelott. Raise your hand, please. Mary Cayce and David Howell. So here's how this is going to go tonight. We're going to be relaxed but informed. Sound good? We're going to give each of these gentlemen about 7 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into a time of Q&A. I will have you come up to the microphone with a specific question for a specific candidate. Then we'll give them time to answer that. After we roll through that time period, we will then give them another 7 minutes for a closing statement. So, introduction, Q&A, closing statements. Everybody good? All right. Does everybody have one of these? If not, I think Daniel's going to pass them out. Raise your hand if you need one. All right, we've asked Barry to go first tonight.
Good evening. As was said, my name is Barry Cayce, candidate for sheriff. I was born and raised in Columbia, Tennessee. Graduated from Columbia High School, went to college at MTSU, got an accounting degree, and got married and decided I wanted to raise my family here in Hickman County. Hickman County was by far much better in schools and everything than Murray County was at that time. So I've lived here for 34 years. I've worked outside the county most of my career, but I've always been able to lay my head down in my home of Hickman County. I started out my career with the state. I actually have a total of 33 and a half years with the state now. Started out my career as an auditor and an investigator. And then I did that for 8 years and then moved to a position of the accounting manager at Attorney Center Prison. And there I basically dealt with all aspects of the prison. Primarily, I was the accounting manager and was over the physical section, warehouse, commissary, things of that nature, inmate trust fund. I also prepared the budgets for Attorney Center, which ranged anywhere from $16 to about $20 million a year. I was responsible for monitoring those budgets and making sure that we didn't overexpend in any areas. And where needed, that those funds were reallocated to other, to different areas. The only things that you couldn't reallocate were the personnel, the salaries, and the benefits. So when that got a little tight, then there was a lot of work to be done. So I'm very familiar with the budgets. I know Hickman County's budget's not that large, but still any budget is something that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of knowledge to work with and be able to put that money where it needs to be. After being the county manager at Attorney Center Prison for 8 years, I took a job as a special agent with the Department of Revenue and have been doing that for soon to be 18 years. So basically that's my background. My campaign, I think the primary issue with most of the people in the county is the drug issue. The drug issue is often related to other crimes, and as a matter of fact, probably most of the crimes, because the thefts, DUIs, even domestic violence, suicides, overdoses, all of that comes back to the drug problem. Excuse me. The drug problem in Hickman County over the last 20 years has increased almost 240%. And I know crime in all areas have increased. As population increases in the county, so will the crime. That's just the nature of the beast. We need to put more efforts into fighting the drug problem in this county, because if we don't, our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids don't have any hope of having a decent life in this county. I know the county is poor as far as money goes, but people want something done. And that's what the new sheriff, whichever one of us it is going to be tasked with. It's going to be tasked with trying to clean up the drug problem as much as possible. You'll never get rid of all of it, but you can make a dent in it. You can make communities safer. Along with that, we also need to educate our communities about the signs of drug use, drug dealers, educate our youth to make them aware of the dangers of even trying the drugs nowadays. You have the fentanyl, you have things that are coming out now that are 100 times more deadly than fentanyl. I know used to, parents would say, well, as a teenager, you're gonna try drinking, you're gonna try smoking pot. Well, guess what? Today, kids try that one time may be their last. And most people in the county, whether it's a family member, a friend, one of your children's friends, somebody knows somebody that has been involved with drugs or has had an overdose or just a family affected by it. And that is something we have to stop. We can educate our kids. We can go after the drug dealers nonstop, which I plan to do if I'm elected sheriff. I have a plan that we can go after the drug dealers and it will not cost the taxpayers of this county one penny. As far as equipment and things of that nature, our deputies need better equipment, they need more equipment, they need more things to do their job. There are grants available. We can also work with the county commission in hopes that they would give more funding for the sheriff's department, pay raises to where we can hire more deputies and better deputies, and retain them. Our deputies now, basically Hickman County is a training ground, just like it was and probably still is for the paramedics. The health professionals, EMTs, they would come to Hickman County, let Hickman County pay their bill to go to school to be an EMT, a paramedic. Deputies let the county pay for their training, and then as soon as they get a little bit of experience, they go to a neighboring county where they can make a lot more money. That is something that we need to start looking at in this county so that we can maintain the good quality deputies instead of losing them to other counties. But basically, of course, the other crimes that I want to fight is domestic violence, which has gone up 220 or 237%, I think, in the last 10 years. We can educate the communities about domestic violence and where they can get help too. Other things would be improving the school resource officer, get them better training to deal with kids with mental health issues, things of that nature. Actually, all the deputies need more and extensive training in dealing with all types of mental health issues. I thought we were fixing to stand up there, but basically, I mean, that's my campaign. And I would just really appreciate everyone's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. A big clap.
Good evening, my name is David Howell. I was born in Dixon Hospital, raised in Hickman County, lived in Hickman County most of my life, except for maybe a couple years that I went to college and stuff like that. But I live here, I'm raising my family here. I've got my youngest son here with me tonight. My middle daughter is at home helping make dinner and such. And my oldest daughter is going to college right now. Whenever I decided to get into law enforcement. I decided to get into law enforcement a little bit later in life. Before that, I had worked at jobs before. I ran my own businesses. I've done that for quite a few years. But then I'd always wanted to try law enforcement. It seemed to call to me a bit. So I started out, state of Tennessee, working for the Department of Correction as a correctional officer. I worked for there for a couple of years. And I started at the Fairview Police Department as an auxiliary officer. Now, working as an auxiliary officer, you know, they helped get me experience, get my foot in the door, and teach me and let me learn if that was something I wanted to do, you know, full-time for a job and stuff. It also gave me insight into reserve and auxiliary programs, which I think are very important. After that, I went to the police academy. I served at Fairview for over 3 years, doing that as full-time officer. And at that point in time, there was problems with the leadership, and so I had to just exit on that because I just could not deal with really bad leadership in law enforcement, which will drag down a whole department, and it is. But after that, I still run my own business. I'm currently a state certified concealed carry handgun permit instructor, run that on the side. I also, you know, work a couple other jobs because I am trying to raise 3 kids, so that's what I've got to do on that. As for the ways that I would foresee running the sheriff's department, I see the sheriff's department as a couple of things. First, like I said, auxiliary and reserve officers and program is definitely something that we need to help augment the full-time deputies, because auxiliary program is great for special events, like we got the 4th of July event coming up this weekend. You know, the 4th of July event, you know, you don't really want to pull full-time officers off the street just because that's going on down there does not mean that the crime and such stops everywhere else. So they are great for taking and augmenting those departments. But at the same time, we also need a lot more full-time officers. They can pull them from the jail, pull them from the reserve programs and such. One of the problems is they wind up coming, they take and train, and then they leave. There's a couple of different reasons for that. Some of it's pay, but a lot of officers will stay at a department that pays less if they've got great leadership. You know, that's one of the keys: great training, great leadership to keep and retain officers. As for the drug problem is absolutely crazy everywhere. And the largest reason we've got a drug problem in all of America is culture. It's not something that can be solved by the police department or the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department can track down, arrest dealers, they can arrest people for possession, etc. And a lot of people don't really want to, you know, they're hoping, well, maybe a new sheriff can help eradicate the drug problem. Well, no, that's not really the way it's going to work. The drug problem can only be eradicated through all of the people. The organizations like the churches, they have to actually take the time to reach out. They have to change the culture. There is a culture war in America. You know, drugs have been accepted by a large portion of people in America. And we have to change the culture to stop accepting drug use and make it taboo once again. You know, there's things that we have to do in America. You know, we can't just say we got to accept everybody's opinion on this because drugs are bad, period. We have to all change it. It's a job that can't be fixed by law enforcement. We need to take and we need to work on all of the crimes. We need to focus on every crime because, like I said, the same guys that are dealing drugs, they're dealing in stolen merchandise. That's one of the ways that people pay for drugs. People that are using drugs, they are the ones out burgling houses. They're doing all that type of stuff. By taking and actually spreading and focusing on law enforcement instead of just drug enforcement, that actually casts the wider net and helps bring in more of these same people that are breaking the laws, assaulting people, etc. All of that needs to be on the radar. So we need to take and make sure that we are going after everybody and not getting tunnel vision and only focusing on one thing, because if we're focusing over here, we're going to miss something over there. We need to make sure that we cast that wide net and pull it all in. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jonathan Aydelott. I'm seeking your support in the 2022 election for Hickman County Sheriff. To give you a little bit of information and background about me, I was born and raised right here in Hickman County. My mom and dad are here with us tonight. I'm married. I have a wife and 3 children. My oldest is 20 years old. She is in Little Rock, Arkansas, in college. Ellie, my middle child, is having senior pictures made right now. So my wife is with her, and my youngest son, Wyatt, is at Camp Maribel. Many of you know where that is in Centerville. To give you a little bit of story about me, I've got 18 years plus as a law enforcement officer right here in Hickman County. I started with the Hickman County Sheriff's Office in 2004. I worked from the Sheriff's Office from 2004 to 2015. My daughter was injured in an incident, and I was fixing to be not so much a single dad, but the only source of income. My wife was going to be a stay-at-home mom to take care of our daughter. So at that time, I went to work for the 21st Judicial District Drug Task Force full-time. Now, a little bit of backstory about that is I was assigned to the 21st Judicial District Drug Task Force in 2011. So I started working narcotics full-time for the Drug Task Force in 2011. I'm a certified canine handler for detector dogs. I come from a narcotics background. We're going to continue to work narcotics under my administration. I came back to the Sheriff's Office about 3 years ago because I knew I had some future plans that I wanted to be back here and try to make a difference in my county once again. When I worked for the Drug Task Force, I worked on the interstate in Hickman County. We chased drug cartels all across the United States. If it came through Hickman County and we stopped it, we had the luxury of delivering that load of drugs to wherever it was going. So we know how to handle that situation on that end of it. We could also tail it back to if it was money coming through, we could be able to seize that money and put it to good use if we could tie a drug nexus to that money. So I have that education on how to seize assets, how to prosecute federal cases. Once coming back to the Sheriff's Office here, we began the federal prosecution of people that meet the criteria for drug charges, those that are convicted felons for weapons, things of that nature. They're prohibited from having those. I would push the envelope and continue under my administration to make sure every officer knows that that luxury and that option is available. Folks, because it's real simple. It's been a revolving door in Hickman County for years and years and years with the same people being arrested over and over and over. And that problem often comes back as the Sheriff's Office isn't doing their job. That's the wrong answer. If that person is out running around in your county, terrorizing your neighborhood, and they have a criminal record, I did my job as the deputy. If that person is out running around in your neighborhood with a criminal record, your problem's not with the deputy or the city police department. Your problem is with the judicial system. They're receiving a slap on the wrist. I'm not up for that. I'm tired of that revolving door. I will take you to federal court, prosecute you on the federal level where you receive 100% of your sentence. You do not get credit for good behavior or anything like that. There are no types of 2-for-1s. You must receive the maximum sentence and you must serve that maximum sentence. Now, with that being said, everybody does not need to be in jail. Do not misunderstand me. If you are a drug user and you need help, through my 18 years of service in this county, I have made some fantastic contacts. And if you need help and you need rehab, I can get you in rehab if you come to me and tell me you need that help. If you give me an hour of your time, I can have you in rehab. If you don't have a ride, I will give you a ride. I don't have to be working. People have my phone number. They can call me while I'm at home, and I have received those calls and got those people into rehab. However, if you get into rehab, everybody makes a mistake, you get kicked out, you leave early for some reason, I will offer you rehab again if at all possible. You leave that time without completing the program and you come back into the system again and you get arrested, I will see to it. I will personally go to the judge and make sure you get sentenced to jail, and then I can offer you rehab in jail. We used to give rehab in jail. We haven't in several years. I would like to go back to that and make sure everybody has that opportunity to get that help that they need. It just depends on them how bad they really want it. There are several areas in our community and everything that need a whole lot of attention. Folks, we need officers. We need to technically double the size of the sheriff's office. There is a national standard across the United States of America. There is a national average of 2.5 officers per 1,000 citizens across the United States. Currently, the Hickman County Sheriff's Office is running 0.59 officers to 1,000 citizens. So you're averaging a half an officer for every 1,000 citizens. And that is figured on taking the city's population completely out of that. Say roughly 22,000 people, we run 0.59 officers. So we need to double the size of our agency, and we would still just barely meet the minimum standard, which is anywhere from 1.8 officers to 2.6. We could just barely meet the criteria to be good with that. The county commission did vote last night to give the officers a raise, which will help, so we can retain the officers and keep them here. They have to do a 3-year contract now. But as was said, you heard from one of the other candidates, Hickman County is a training facility. I know that because I'm the only candidate here in front of you tonight that's been working for you. I'm here. I've been here this whole time. There's a whole lot more I could talk about. I just got my 1 minute notice, so I'll speed this up. I would love to look into having a juvenile detention facility. I think the problem is at home with our youth, and it needs to be taken care of at home. But if we can curb that and get the attention of these kids, we might be able to save them, to keep them from being the repeat offenders that we have to deal with now. Right now, if we have a juvenile we have to lock up, it costs the parents anywhere from about $135 a night to $160 a night. If we had that here, there's grants available by the state of Tennessee. You can look them up. They're called Formula 1 grants. If we can help our children, help our youth, let's do that. I still got time? Yep. Okay. So, that is some of the other things I'd like to work on. I'm here for you. I need you to know that I work for you. As the sheriff of the county, I would work for you. I need to know what matters to you. I want community outreach programs. I want to go into your communities, your local communities, and tell you the trends that we're seeing and see if we can make you aware of it. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your complaints in your neighborhoods are. I want to know what your complaints in your neighborhoods are, folks. Thank you. I'll be around when this is over. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, now we're going to go into a time of Q&A. We're going to go by candidate, so I'm going to bring a gentleman up and somebody will come and ask a question. I want us to be very respectful tonight. These men are here to serve, and we're going to treat them in that manner. Sound like a deal? All right. David, you're going to be first on the Q&A, and then we'll just rotate through for the next 30 minutes or so. So if you have a question for David, we have a microphone for you.
Check. Oh, it isn't.
Check, check.
Don't be shy, guys.
This question would be for all three of you. What would your expectations and your plans be for the county cleanup program that's been put out to go through and help clean up some of the crappy looking places that we've got in our county. Those things don't breed good prosperity. Your question, your answers would be great.
Now, I just want to be clear, are you talking, such as like inmate litter crews, or
No, I'm talking about the
what are you talking
residents.
about exactly?
The residents.
The residences?
Yeah, the cleanup resolution.
Such as the, where the zoning has them, where people are just like making a mess of their homes and stuff like that.
I think it's referring to the cleanup.
The cleanup resolution that was passed by the county
Yeah.
commission.
Okay, well, for me, I'm a big property rights guy. I'm not, you know, unless it's, presenting a danger to the public, I don't see where that's the sheriff's department's job. You know, if it's presenting a danger to the public, like somebody can't be storing, you know, leaky oil drums that's tainting the water supply on the property and such. But, you know, we also shouldn't have the authority to have, just because they've got a car in their yard, be able to go in and tell them, hey, you gotta get that out. That's their property. They should be able to do what they see fit, you know? I've driven through places that just look horrible, or especially, I think it's up, like Becca Bell up east. You know, it looks horrible up there. That, one of the places that they really need to clean it up, but that's not really the sheriff's department's or the government's job to tell people what they should do with their property in that way, unless it is a hazard to others. Now, if it's a hazard to others, and they can get a court order, get it cleaned up, then the way I look at it is, at that point in time, we will make sure the court order is enforced. But just to make it just a matter of business, I'm not really for that type of stuff.
Okay, thanks. Jonathan, you're up next. Anybody have a question for Jonathan?
Same question all the way around, please.
Sure, I'm trying to avoid a debate
Okay.
and just ask each of the guys questions.
I can answer that though.
Yeah, I understand that we farm out some of the sheriff's jobs to the highway patrol, to the state. And is there any plan to pull that back in-house and hire people here to do it? Because, we can't vote the highway patrol out, but we can vote the sheriff out.
That's correct. What jobs are the
I
highway
guess
patrol?
investigating accidents, even on county roads?
Yes, that is because the sheriff's office does not have and haven't for years and years and years ever had anybody to do construction on wrecks, reconstruction on wrecks. That also, because we don't have the manpower to run from call to call every day and get those taken up in a timely manner. We certainly don't have the luxury of working fatality wrecks even, or any type of fender bender. So THP is called in to work the wrecks, but that is the only thing, and it's been that way since before my start in 2004. I don't know as far as us working wrecks for the simple, now we can do, let me back up on that. We can run out and give you owner-operator reports, say you hit a deer or something like that, winter storm, you slide off the road, you damage your car, your insurance is gonna require you. We can work those types of situations for you. If it's a one-car incident, just what happened, you hit a deer, you ran off the road, something like that, you blew a tire, something happened with your car. We can do those are pretty easily done because your insurance company will most likely require you to have a report, so we can do that for you. But that is the only thing, to my knowledge, in the history of the sheriff's office that we don't work wrecks. That's the only thing that we do sub out to the state.
Okay, so there's no plan at all to bring it back?
Absolutely not. I don't have enough officers now to run calls. I can't work wrecks and calls and everything else on top of that.
Okay, thanks.
Can I answer that question later on, maybe off in private or something?
Sure. Or in your closing statement if you
I
like.
can do that.
Yeah. Folks, let's be neighborly when we come up and introduce ourselves when we have a question. So these guys know who they're talking to. Barry, thank you, next.
I think you had a question for John.
Got another one for me?
Yeah, I did. My name's Nathan Tuggy.
Hi, Nathan.
And I was just wondering about, you mentioned asset forfeiture a little bit, specifically in connection with drug runners, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on what kinds of qualifications you see for confiscating money and potentially other assets. What kinds of criteria do you have for when somebody is?
So if I can tie a drug nexus to that money, and there are several different ways to do that. It could be through simply an interview or interrogation to where the person that is in possession of the money, they tell me that that money is a result of illegal drug proceeds. After that time, I can run a canine on that. And if the canine alerts, because canines are not trained to sniff out money, they're trained to sniff out the odor of drugs. And the same hands that touch those drugs are the exact same hands that touch that money. To go a step better than that, I conduct an ion swab on that money. Now, you've always heard that all money tests positive for drugs. That is true. That's the reason the threshold is placed on those, and it's a certain number. And when we ion swab those and it runs through that machine, it will tell us if that money alarms out. It tells us that that money has been in direct contact with the drugs. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. That was some of the things we used at the drug task force, but you would be amazed just by simply knowing how to talk to people and interview them. They would usually give you a confession to it. But there are avenues and ways to prove that through the ion swabs, through the canine sweeps of the money, and a direct drug nexus being tied from that individual you found him with it if they've got a past criminal history for a certain type of drug, and then you run that ion swab on it and it comes back for the same type of drug. There are those ways right there. In a nutshell, I can sit here and talk to you about that all day long, but that's a short answer of it. I will talk to you again maybe after everything's over. I'll be glad to.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Good question.
Is that Barry? Take a question. Anyone have a question for Barry? Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Hey, Mr. Cayce, I'm Jared Petrowski. It's good to see you tonight. My question, how can you talk about retaining employees, keeping them in this county, when you currently work outside the county? It's kind of as if you're coming into this saying, do as I say, not as I've done type of situation.
Well, some people have the luxury of working in the county. My career, I didn't have that luxury at the time. When I got out of school, I tried to work in the county, there were no jobs, so I had to go elsewhere. As a great number of people in this county have to do. It's an unfortunate situation, and I would much rather have been working in this county, but that opportunity didn't present itself.
How are you going to convince your deputies to stay?
Well, for one of my candidates, colleagues here alluded to it, is good leadership. Low pay is one thing. I've been in jobs where the pay is not very good. But when you have the leadership and the management or the leader that backs you and tells you when you're doing a good job, gives you that pat on the back, a lot of people will forego extra money for the recognition of doing a good job. Now, I'm not saying, by any means we need to start patting all of them on the back in hopes that we don't have to pay them more money, because they are drastically underpaid. That's something that you gotta work with the county commission on. People are moving into this county left and right. That ups your tax base. So our county commission has the opportunity to increase the funds in different departments, the sheriff's department mainly, if they will do it. But just like the sheriff's department, the people of the county, you have to get on to your county commissioners. You have to talk to them. You have to convince them to do what is right for you. Not what's right for them. Not what they think is right for the county, because nobody is going to be 100% correct. But we got to start pushing them to do what is right for the people of this county, the ones that are actually paying their salary for being on the county commission. That pays the salary of all your county employees. The county department leaders. So that is something that, the people need to come together and start working on that avenue also.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, David, you ready for another question?
I guess.
Okay. Any questions for David?
Well, Mr. Howell, my name's Keith Bradshaw. Thank you for being here tonight. I really liked how you connected the drug problem to a culture problem. And we, the church, do have a big responsibility there. Is it, as you think through that being a culture problem, do you have any ideas of where the sheriff in particular would help work with the people on this culture problem so that there's some working and cooperation there?
Yes, sir. For the sheriff's department, the biggest place would be through the SRO programs. You know, we've got officers,
Can you define that for me, please?
I'm sorry,
SRO, what
as
is
the
it?
school resource officers.
Okay, thank you.
Because in the schools, you know, the kids are there, the officer's there. His first job is the safety of the school. You know, he's not there to make the kids like him. He's not there for any of that. But while he's there, he should also help the teachers, the administration, and the children learn. Because when they're that young in the school system, they're being impacted by lots of outside forces. There needs to be outside forces such as the sheriff's office that help them know the dangers of drugs and such. Because we've sort of stepped away from that in the past 20 years or so. They had the whole war on drugs that went on there, but we kind of seem to abandon all of it. There's no need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to educate the children on about drugs, let them know how bad it is, and that is one of the ways that we help turn the culture inside the schools, because inside the schools have their own culture as well. You know, you've got the outside world, and you've got for kids that go to public schools, the government schools, you've got the inside culture too. And we have to help change that culture to be more not accepting of the drug problems.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Jonathan? Any questions for Jonathan?
Jeffrey Bodkin,
Oh, Mr. Buckins,
good to see you. You want a hard one or an easy
I'm here for you. Put me to the test.
one? Back to this SRO question. What is your opinion about teachers being able to carry in the schools?
That is a great question, and I'm glad that you asked me that. That is not gonna be the sheriff's responsibility, and there's a number of reasons why. First and foremost, who is gonna make sure that teacher is qualified? Are you gonna put that teacher on the firing range with deputies, with officers? Who's gonna sign off on that in the event that teacher shoots somebody and then a student gets hit in the accidentally in the same time? Folks, they're not gonna go after that teacher, they're gonna come after me because I'm the one that signed off on it saying they were qualified. I'm not signing off on it saying you're qualified, number one. Number two, and you will hear this correct, but I will repeat it for you. If you're not gonna let the SROs have a rifle in that school when they have safes in their offices and it's bolted down, I absolutely will not give a teacher a gun if you're not gonna give that officer the gun he needs to do his job. I'm not signing off on that teachers. Right now in Hickman County, our SROs in every school in this county, they do not have a rifle in that school. It's in their car in the parking lot. Well, is a bad guy gonna wait and come back later? I don't think so. If you forget your wallet at home, do you get to eat lunch that day? No, you don't. You've got to give them the tools they need to do the job. So when the officers get the job, get the tools to do the job, then I could easily see it that the teachers would be allowed to do it. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to see who's going to sign off on their certificates.
Yeah.
And keep the records on it.
So you think the citizens could do something to help that rule about the rifle in the schools?
Yes, they could go talk to their county commissioners, they could talk to the school board, talk to your school board members that are in your district. Get influence from them, get their input, see if they're opposed to it. Absolutely, you have that right to do that. But I'm not in favor of it right now because I'm not signing off on their records until I see some kind of process that they have figured out that we could all agree on. Then I could go with it until those those officers in those schools though do not get the weapons they need to do their job because they're a marked target. I mean, the teachers don't go around with bulletproof vests on in uniforms that say sheriff's office or police department, anything like that. Those guys have a target on their back. Give them the tools they need to do their job. Then we can work on getting the teachers the other tools that they need to help protect them. But I'm also willing to go into the schools and maybe help the teachers and give them some certain facts and things that they might want to look at and do. I've done that through some of the church safety classes that I've taught. We can go in and teach them how to make their classrooms just a little bit safer, and that's easily done too with tools readily available in the classrooms every day.
Okay, that's good. Can I do two or is it? No, just keep
Just one. Back it into the line.
Eager beaver.
There's questions for Barry.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Mr. Cayce.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Read through your answers that you
Yes.
supplied. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You got in here Isaiah 6:8. Whom shall I send and who will go for us? And then I said, here I am, send me. So, okay. Second part of my question is this. Can I ask you a two-part question? Well, the first one is this. The first one is this. I think you'll be merciful to me. What motivated you to want to go into the sheriff's job? I mean, you've got a really safe, good job right now. When did that happen in your life that you wanted to be a sheriff? And why? Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, no job in law enforcement is safe. I don't care which agency you work with. Okay? Just to get that clear. Mr. Aydelott works with local criminals. I've worked with agencies where we deal with terrorists that, believe it or not, are stealing most citizens' money and sending it back to the Middle East. Okay? We have dealt with the mob. We have dealt with gangs. So, it doesn't matter if you are an officer here in Hickman County, if you are a highway patrolman, or a federal agent. No law enforcement job is safe. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what made me want to become sheriff? Many years ago, I got to meet a hero of mine. 2 weeks before he was killed, that was Buford Buster. He was sheriff in McNairy County, and I don't know if many people are familiar with him now, but back then, I mean, he was in the papers all the time. He ran as sheriff in McNairy County to clean to clean up the drugs, prostitution, gambling, things of that nature. Okay? My next door neighbor when I was growing up was sheriff of Murray County. So those are my two heroes in law enforcement. And they are the ones that from an early age that I wanted in law enforcement and wanted to aspire to sheriff of wherever I lived.
Okay, that's good. Can I do part B or not?
Is it a quick?
It's
point
really
B?
good.
Okay.
It's really good. So, no job is safe, all right? You're in danger. And the next verse you got in here is greater love hath no man than this, and a man lay down his life for his friends. What kind of risk would there be right here in this little county if you really do go after the drugs like you've talked about? What kind of risk would you have?
Probably a substantial risk. I don't know, I can't give you a complete answer on that because I don't know. I do know that I have had close friends of mine, I've had family members tell me that if I do what I say I'm gonna do, that I will never make it through the first term as sheriff. Okay?
Okay.
That right there cannot sway my decision to run for sheriff. And if elected, you know, then that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going after all the crimes, drug dealers in particular, going after them nonstop, 110%. And it doesn't matter what danger that puts me in. I work for the people. I will stand between the people and the criminals anytime.
Okay, thank you.
That's good, thanks. David? This will probably be the last open Q&A, so get up quick if you got a question. See a hand waving in the back.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Young. One of your questions was the primary issue in the county. You said overall crime, and that some of the same people will be doing not only drugs but some of the other crime. Okay, so how do you plan on taking care of overall crime? What are your plans to take care of that?
Well, the biggest thing would be to not tie the hands of the detectives and let them investigate the burglaries and all of that type of stuff, because most of the time the burglaries and everything in Hickman County, they get a report written on them. It gets put into a detective's work box, and it just stays there. It could stay there 20 years without ever even getting looked at. Now, it may get looked at occasionally, but we've got to make sure that we actually focus on all the crime. If we're only looking for the drug dealers and such, then we're not dealing with the molestation, the burglaries and all of that. That leads us to the other crimes, to help get people's stuff back, to help make sure that all of it's taken care of. Because the same guy that's over here purchasing drugs, he's also taking and burglaring houses on the weekends and such when people are gone, so that he can pay for those drugs. And at that point in time, the drug dealers and such, they're taking in the stolen items. By concentrating and actually investigating all of the crimes, it'll actually, like I said in my opening statement, it'll cast a wider net and it'll pull in more of the criminals. And that'll all have the benefit of lowering the drug crimes, burglaries, assaults, and overdoses and all of that. We've got to make sure, like I said, to take and actually make sure that we investigate it all, so that we can pull down overall crime rates instead of spending, 2 years trying to bring down one drug dealer. That help answer it any?
Not really, but, I mean, how you're gonna go about doing this is really what I'm asking.
Well,
not
by actually
what.
investigating the crimes. Because most of those crimes don't get they don't get the eyeballs on all of it that they should have. Most of the time, the detectives are using all of their time doing other things, mainly drug-related things, instead of concentrating on the burglaries, the car thefts, etc., the catalytic converters, all that type of stuff. And by actually following up on this stuff, people will file a report and they will never hear anything else back from the sheriff's department on it. By following up on that stuff, it takes and it pulls all of them in. Does that help you?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Jonathan, you're next.
Anybody have a question for Jonathan?
Okay, how about a really hard one?
I'm gonna make you re-announce yourself, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So, we all know that in the next month, because of this trigger law on abortion, there will be a lot of regulations hammered out arguing, we don't know exactly what the regulations will be in the state. But let me just tell you a real quick story, background. In 1954, I mean, that's a long time before Roe, but most people don't realize you can still do abortions. A licensed physician could do one. And when my mom was pregnant with me, she almost aborted me because the doctor said, if you don't, your heart will give out and you'll die. And he pressured her, but she didn't do it. Okay? But he was licensed. He was within the regulations that existed at the time. It was called a therapeutic abortion, and he could do it. And it would have been technically legal. So the question, here's the hard question. Okay. If the state regulations come down to that there's this little window where a licensed physician in Hickman County could actually perform an abortion, and you found out that it was happening, what would you do?
By the licensed physician.
Yeah.
Is it being done to save someone's life?
Well, like in my mom's case, no, he was lying to her. She went on to have several other children. She lived into her 90s. So a doctor may say, you've got to have this to save your life, and by the way, the fee is $600. And it's not to save a life.
Okay.
And there's murder in your county, what would you do?
So, in that situation, it's not necessarily my answer as the sheriff. I'm gonna have to ask the district attorney if they would find a way to prosecute that, because it's the district attorney who prosecutes the case. It is not the sheriff or the deputy that does it. Because if I go to the district attorney and I say, hey, this is going on,
Yep.
will you prosecute this? And the district attorney says, yes, I will. Then here's where we go with this. It may be something as simple as an indictment coming, where they get indicted as a John Doe or a Jane Doe later on. And it could even be the mother of the child, depending on the reason that it was done for, and it could be the medical physician, if I have that burden of proof to present that, and the DA is willing to prosecute that case to let the judge hear it. And then the jury would be able to decide that. But if the district attorney says, I can't prosecute that, I can't arrest them, it is a lawsuit back to us for wrongful arrest.
But anyway, if you knew it was going on, it sounds like what you do is pick up the phone, you'd call Hans and say, hey, here's what's going on.
It would be Hans.
Yeah. So, and you would chase that down.
Absolutely.
And then call him.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, that's
So we're gonna investigate.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, sir. Any questions for Barry?
I've got another one.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just because it came around to you, it wasn't anything personal. How do you feel about the fourth candidate not being here tonight?
Well, it's my understanding he had to work, and since he does work for a law enforcement agency, then I find that acceptable in my opinion. I mean, the safety of the people comes first.
Aaron, he only used 13 seconds of his time. Somebody ask him another question. In the back.
I'll try to stretch this one out to 2 seconds.
My name is Brendan Lemon.
How you doing, sir?
You mentioned in an earlier question that you have experience dealing with the mob, gangs, terrorism. How would you apply that experience to the specific problems in Hickman County?
Well, in campaigning, I have been told about many different forms of corruption in this county. So my investigative experience with the state and everything, I think will be a great benefit to investigate things like that and bring people to justice, okay? I won't get into details of anything, but there's a lot of corruption in this county, and some of it just about sickens me to my stomach.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how about a round of applause for these guys? podium there and field a lot of questions. I appreciate you guys joining tonight. All right, we're going to have a closing statement here, about 7 minutes. We're going to start with Jonathan and Barry. Go ahead.
I don't know if this will take the whole 7 minutes, but to answer the question that you had, my understanding is I have time to address this right now. It's free time, so to speak, right? Great. So in 2019, Hickman County enacted with the Zoning and Planning Commission, the cleanup resolution. I immediately started work on that, turning these houses in. And basically what that is, folks, is if you have somebody in your neighborhood, you as a private citizen have the right to come down and sign a complaint. You can't do it anonymous, but you have the right to come down and sign a complaint on that person or that residence in that location with Mr. Robert Atchison, who oversees the planning and zoning. He will come out and go to your property, look around and see if there are violations. If you have something that's a huge eyesore, if you have something that may be prohibiting businesses and industries from coming into our county, wanting to do business here in Hickman County to save us some revenue, you can file that petition with him. He goes out, looks at the property. If it continues to be something and he thinks there's a legit complaint, he'll tell you, hey, you gotta get this cleaned up, or you have the option to put a fence up, kind of hide the eyesore to where it's not in the public's eye. If you choose not to do either one of those, you get turned into court, you have to go to court, you get to explain to the judge why you shouldn't have to clean that up. And it could be a number of things. It doesn't just have to be the vehicle, it could be trash piled up. We've seen all kinds of them. So it took me, long story short, it took me 2 years to get a house boarded up. But I personally screwed the screws in the wood through the windows and doors. I fought that battle for 2 years. It was not a benefit to anybody in Hickman County unless you were a drug dealer or a thief, because we worked 50-something overdoses at that particular residence. We had stolen property coming and going from there. We had wanted fugitives in and out of there all the time. It was a major eyesore to every resident around it. The day we boarded it, people were coming out of their houses and clapping and cheering. That was the first one. We work on these all the time. The sheriff's office works hand in hand with Robert on these. And if you have a complaint, like I said, you can contact him. You have to come down and sign a complaint on it, but you have that luxury now since the cleanup resolution went into effect into Hickman County in 2019. So that answers that. Now, you've heard a lot of great information on everybody up here tonight. Folks, I'm not gonna say anything negative about any of the other candidates. I worked for you like we talked about earlier. I wanna hear from you. I want to know what your concerns are. I want to know what the problems are in your neighborhood. I want to work on building relationships with the citizens and the businesses in this county. I worked for you for 18 plus years. My phone rings 24/7. This job is not a 9 to 5 or anything like that. This job is what I live and breathe. I am just as passionate about it tonight standing here in front of you as I was when I went to the academy 18 years ago. I love what I do. I am not standing here applying for a job. I have a passion to do this. And I think together we can make our county better and get a lot of things accomplished that need to be accomplished. If you haven't followed my Facebook page or anything like that, I would ask you to follow my page. You can find me on Facebook, follow my look at my website, email address, folks. I'll be here tonight when this is all said and done. I don't want to take anything else away from these gentlemen. I'll answer any question you have. If you have a question that you didn't want to ask in public, I understand how that works. It may be something personal to you. I understand that. I will make myself available for you. If you don't want to ask now, you want to ask over the phone, I will give you my phone number. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your cares and concerns are. I want to help you if at all possible. Together we can do this, but it's going to take work from both of us. And again, I work for you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the questions. I'll stick around.
I appreciate anybody who comes in under time. Barry, you have 7 minutes.
I just want to thank each and every one of you for actually having the interest in your county, your communities, to be here tonight. It's a privilege for us to be able to talk to you. Again, I'll kind of reiterate what he said. I'm not applying for a job. I'm applying or asking to be your servant. I'm asking to be the one that you put out front to go after the criminals in this county. You know, in Hickman County in the last 10 years, our overall crime has increased 175%. 10 years ago, 59% of those crimes were cleared. Recently, only 35% of those crimes are cleared. Several factors play into that. You have people moving into the county, you don't have enough deputies to investigate everything and look at everything, which is a travesty to all of us. And we can put part of that blame on the county commission for not properly funding the sheriff's department in this county. There are ways that they can do that, and they can do it without hurting the taxpayers, okay? Domestic crime is another thing. Over the last 10 years, it's increased 230%. 10 years ago, 91% of domestic crimes were cleared. Recently, only 51% of those domestic crimes are cleared.
Barry, what do you mean by clear?
Cleared means either, and it's a definition by the TBI, it's arrested, either the person dies, they're actually convicted, they're sentenced, things of that nature. Okay? So our crime is continually increasing, and the results are getting less. Okay? I'm not faulting anyone with the sheriff's department. Like I said, we have a population growth. With population growth, crime automatically increases. That's anywhere you go in this country. So, if elected sheriff, I'm going after all the criminals. I'm going after the drug dealers primarily because most all of the other crimes in this county stem from the drug problem. And, you know, whether it's the thefts, domestics, DUIs, things like that. Drugs are the #1 factor in this county that leads to most all of the other crimes. I'm all for drug rehabilitation for somebody that enters the court system. You know, I say one time, you know, they have to be sincere and want help one time. The second time, they can get the rehab in the jail. I will work with the communities. I've had my ears open. I've taken notes on what people have told me. I plan on having quarterly meetings to deal with the community and to hear their concerns, their complaints. I don't want to have a quarterly meeting and hear compliments. I want to hear their complaints and their concerns. My phone number is out there on everything I put out. It's on Facebook. It's on my signs. If y'all have noticed, it's on the cards. It's on anything I put out there. So everybody in this county, if I'm elected, should have my phone number or be able to get in contact with me one way or another. So, with that said, I don't ask for anybody's vote. I ask for your consideration. I believe I'm the best person for the job. I have more administrative experience, more personnel experience, more investigative experience, and I just ask for your consideration and allowing me to be the servant of the people. Thank you.
All right, I'll try to keep it short because I don't really have a lot more to say. I got into law enforcement for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was I really liked and wanted to be somebody that helped protect other people's rights, as well as my rights. You have the right to not have somebody break into your home, and you have all of these rights. And the bad part about it is there are some in law enforcement, a minority that is willing to trample those rights to do what they want to do. I think we need more people that in law enforcement that are standing up for the people's rights. You need to make sure that they're held accountable. We need more of the good law enforcement officers and less of the bad ones. So to do that, we've got to crowd out the bad ones. And that's probably just about it. That's why I got into all of this. I got into the sheriff's race in particular, just because everything going on, I figured and I thought that we really needed somebody that will stand with the people against everything going on, the criminals, some of the federal government encroachment on our rights. We need to be able to stand against all of that. And the sheriff is one of the best tools to make sure that that happens. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we do appreciate you coming out. This has been great. One more time for these guys, please. I see George has the coffee ready in the back. I see snacks on that table back there. So let's call the official proceedings to a close. Let me pray real quick, and then we'll have some fellowship. Father, we are thankful for this evening that you've given us. We're thankful for these men and their desire to serve their communities. We pray that you will bless them in their work as they move forward. Lord, we thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.